top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It appears that the intel has checked out. The rumors are true. Natasha Jonas will be moving down in weight in her very next fight from 154 down to 147 in her bid to become a two-division champion for what is the newly vacated IBF title opposite the ring seasoned contender Candy Wyatt. Early next month on the 1st on the undercard of Marshall versus Cruz Dezern. Irrespective of who wins, what that essentially means is that there will now be 3 reigning champions in the women's welterweight division. Natasha Jonas or Candy Wyatt being one among them. Sandy Ryan, WBO champion, being another. And of course, former undisputed champion Jessica McCaskill, who's on the bounce after that loss to Chantel Cameron. Depending on what happens, we may have another undisputed bout, another undisputed bid between champions. For now, Natasha Jonas, who sports a professional record of 13 wins with 2 losses, 1 draw, 8 knockouts, having only ever been knocked out once in 16 professional bouts. She spent all of last year campaigning as a junior middleweight, and upon news breaking that she was going to be moving up there, I knew that her campaign as a junior middleweight would be short-lived, because Natasha Jonas, God bless her, she's not a true junior middleweight. Even if she herself is that division's unified Ring Magazine and lineal champion, she's a naturally smaller fighter who moved up in weight, moved all the way up there from 130, 135 up to 154. She's not a true junior middle. Candy Wyatt, who sports a professional record of 11 wins with 4 losses, no draws, 3 knockouts, having been knocked out 2 times in 15 professional contests. She's coming right off a split decision win over Kirsty Bavington. Derailed her momentum. Can she derail Natasha's? Anything is possible, anything is. But for me and my money, it's likelier than not that Natasha Jonas can box up Candy Wyatt, because she is in fact a better boxer, a more put-together fighter than Candy, with a higher ceiling and a stronger puncher. Even if she is 39 years old, she doesn't look it. She takes very good care of herself. Candy's 3 for 3 in her last 6. She won 3 fights, she lost 3 fights. As stated, she's coming right off a split decision win over Kirsty Bavington in March of this year. I like Natasha Jonas's chances against her, and this could very well be Natasha Jonas's last year in the sport of boxing. At 39 years old, having already accomplished so much up there at junior middle, if she becomes a champion at welter, makes her a 2-division champion. Having shared the ring with the likes of Vivian Obanoff, Terry Harper, Katie Taylor, Patricia Bergoul, Chris Namis. She retired Canada's own Marie-Eve DeCare for what was the IBF title, their unification match. Natasha Jonas already has a very accomplished resume, an already accomplished body of work. There's not that much left for her to do, and at this age... What about the Terry Harper rematch? Well, I don't think she's moving down to 147 pounds because she has her heart set on unifying titles with Terry Harper, who's up there at 154. Yeah, I don't think that rematch is happening. A rematch with Terry Harper for all the marbles, all the belts at 154 would have been a much bigger fight than this one, the fight with Candy Wyatt. The fight would have been for undisputed. This fight with Candy Wyatt, even if it is a bid to become a 2-division champion, it's not as big a fight. You know, that fight with Terry Harper, that rematch, that could have been a main event. Yeah, but that ship has sailed. Attention now turns to a welterweight campaign that could see Natasha Jonas facing the winner of Sandy Ryan versus Jessica McCaskill. The 2 other champions at this weight. More so if the winner of the fight is Jessica McCaskill, who I think has a little bit more wiggle room than Sandy does. Sandy's contracted to Matchroom, whereas Jessica McCaskill, I think she's a promotional free agent. If she would have upset the apple cart for Sandy, I do think she has the autonomy to cross over to boxer and unified titles with Natasha Jonas. Another potential matchup that I think would be made possible if Natasha wins, if Natasha beats Candy Wyatt, is a Michaela Mayer fight. It's a big fight. 2 big names. The opportunity for Michaela Mayer, former unified super featherweight champion that has since moved up in weight to lightweight. That would be her chance to become a 2-division champion. I think a fight like that is a distinct possibility should Natasha Jonas beat Candy Wyatt and become the welterweight division's IBF champion. I think she will. I do think she's going to beat Candy Wyatt. Candy Wyatt, God bless her, she's experienced, plenty experienced, but she ain't got Natasha Jonas' ceiling or her ability. Got Tasha winning that fight. The division's an open book after that. If she does, if she wins, she can pursue the winner of McCaskill versus Ryan or a showdown with Michaela Mayer. Keep your eyes peeled for Jonas versus Wyatt on the undercard of Marshall versus Cruz Dezern. In men's super lightweight news, on the heels of his successful title defense this past weekend, Regis chimed in on Teofimo Lopez, saying he needs to come over to Matchroom to get paid what he's worth.
Regis Prograis and Teofimo, 2 of 4 champions in the men's super lightweight division here today.
No, Prograis said on the Boxing with Chris Mannix podcast when asked if he thinks Lopez has really retired. Obviously, hell no. You know what I mean? He needs to come over to Matchroom and get paid. That's what he needs to do. He said he retired.
If only temporarily.
They gave him $1 million for that fight. That is insane, bro. They're feeding him breadcrumbs to the birds, you know? If they give you $1 million for that fight, it's true, man. They need to pay him what he's worth. He's got $1 million for that. That's just terrible. I definitely don't think he's going to retire.
But he has.
It's on his mind right now, but money is always the biggest motivator. If he faces me or Devin Haney or Ryan Garcia or somebody big, he'll come back. And I know that all of those fights are big fights, so I think his next fight will be his biggest purse.
Well, I mean, he did vacate the WBO title.
Most are interpreting Teofimo Lopez's impromptu retirement as a play to not only get it more money with Top Rank, but protect what he might make moving forward against his ex-wife, soon-to-be ex-wife.
Going through a divorce.
And some are saying that until that divorce is finalized, whatever he's making here and now is under threat.
Ex-wife might get a piece of that.
So what he's doing now is putting his career on hold so that he can focus on those affairs and settle those affairs, perhaps win the custody battle for his child, and then resume his boxing career. That could see him sitting out for at least a year, a situation like that.
He will have lost all momentum from that Josh Taylor win if he were to be absent from the sport for that amount of time.
There's a lot of money and a lot of opportunity on the table for Teofimo Lopez right now, but he does have to get his affairs in order. So perhaps it's better that he take care of that stuff. That still leaves Regis Prograis. That still leaves Devin Haney and Zorrilla Matias.
IBF champion.
Regis Prograis wants the third and final fight of his Matchroom deal to come against Zorrilla Matias, who's supposed to be in action very soon opposite the ring former IBF champion Sergey Lipinets.
I think Zorrilla's gonna knock Sergey out.
What will be a fun fight to watch. Regis Prograis has already had his first fight of his existing 3-fight deal with Matchroom this past weekend. The plan is we're going to fight in New Orleans and then Texas the second time.
They already had the fight in New Orleans this past weekend.
Probably against a Hispanic fighter, and then after that, I would think to go for the belt. Hearn has talked to Matias, and I think that's the route that I'm going to go to try to get that belt. The 34-year-old Prograis has been criticized for signing with Hearn's company and DAZN over Bob Arum's Top Rank Inc. and ESPN because the strong southpaw could have fought the winner of Lopez versus Taylor.
Well, the winner of Lopez versus Taylor was Teofimo Lopez, and he just announced his retirement.
So if Regis would have signed to Top Rank instead of Matchroom on the premise that he's looking to fight the winner of Lopez versus Taylor, he would have been left high and dry.
He would have got stood up.
Because Teofimo Lopez won the fight and Teofimo just announced his retirement. Josh Taylor said he's going up to welterweight.
Regis wouldn't have got the fight. If he went over there looking for a Lopez fight, he would have got stood up.
Thus making his decision to sign to Matchroom instead of Top Rank the right move, the right decision. I heard Matias, Zorrilla Matias, call me out when I was still going through the whole Probellum disruption, Prograis said in reference to his former promoter, but I couldn't really say nothing about him then. And then I was a free agent, so I had to be quiet. But you know, Eddie told me, Matias is a free agent, and we're trying to get him. That's a fight for you. And I was like, all right. And that's kind of another reason why I signed with Eddie, because that's a fight that I want.
His comments were made before this past weekend's fight with Danielito Zorrilla.
In truth, I don't know why people struggle with this so much, why they're so critical of Regis signing to Matchroom instead of Top Rank when you see how it all worked out. Teofimo Lopez may not be fighting for some time.
Right.
So if Regis went over there looking for him,
He wouldn't have got him.
so what was he supposed to do? Waste more time trying to get Jose Ramirez in the ring? Jose Ramirez, who seems to have his heart set on a Lopez fight as well.
He was supposed to spend more time on that?
I really feel like, besides myself, he's one of the most dangerous people at 140 pounds right now. And I like challenges. I do want that fight. So like I said, after this fight, I don't know who Eddie will want me to fight. But the third fight, I think, will be Matias, you know? In a unification. I don't know for sure, but that's what I'm thinking.
I'm thinking Jack Catterall could be the next fight.
Jack Catterall, who was in action not that long ago, the man who unofficially beat Josh Taylor in the eyes of many, I saw him make some mention of wanting to fight Regis Prograis in the fall, in October.
It's a good fight.
Beyond that, he looks to fight Zorrilla Matias. Zorrilla Matias, who Regis says, I think he's pretty good. I don't think he has the resume yet. I don't think he's fought a name. Really be up there with me. He doesn't have that resume yet, but just looking at him, style-wise, I think he's up there.
I agree.
Though Regis Prograis does comparatively have more familiar names, more solid ones on his resume compared to Zorrilla Matias, lest we forget. He won the WBA title years ago from then-champion Kirill Rillik.
Well, recently he knocked out hard-punching southpaw Jose Zepeda for what was the newly vacated WBC title.
Obviously, he was in action this past weekend against Puerto Rico's own Danielito Zorrilla. Compared to Zorrilla, Regis does have more of a resume, though the fight itself would be described as a 50-50 fight, a pick'em fight in many circles.
Regis already being in his mid-30s, time isn't necessarily on his side.
Becomes subject to some criticism based on how he looked in action this past weekend opposite the ring, Danielito Zorrilla.
The Boo Birds are out in full force.
To that, Regis Prograis himself says, we definitely have to go back to the gym and work on some things. Cutting off the ring, I think, being one among them.
But I don't put it all on Regis. And Danielito Zorrilla, you had a fighter who was quite content fighting only half a fight.
A negative fight, that you're all defense and almost no offense, and you think that's going to win you the rounds.
It didn't.
We definitely have to go back to the gym and work on some things. Prograis admitted to DAZN's Chris Mannix in the ring. He ran. He was just trying to survive. He was strong, so I thought I would throw more punches, but he just ran around. It was kind of hard to get him.
People are already writing off Regis Prograis the same way that they wrote off Teofimo Lopez after the Sandor Martin fight and how he looked in that fight.
There's a very obvious parallel there you can make between how Teofimo looked with Sandor and how Regis looked with Danielito for the same reason. They were fighting moving targets that were content fighting half a fight, a negative fight that spent most of the fight on their bicycle trying not to get hit.
Though not doing much hitting.
People wrote off Teofimo Lopez after the Sandor Martin fight. I was one among them. But Teofimo Lopez turned it all around in his very next fight. That being said, I'm not going to write off Regis Prograis based on one fight. Just one fight with a guy who was determined to not fight.
Guy who spent the whole fight on his bike?
It's not all on Regis, you know. It takes two guys to have a fight and only one to fuck it up. It was a tough win, noted Prograis. I felt like I deserved the win. Just to see the people in my backyard, I'm glad I brought it back. But I've got to go work on some things for sure.
It's not as simple as saying the movement bothered him.
It was a bad style matchup. Oh, it was definitely a bad style matchup. But you're in there with a guy who's fighting a negative fight, who's quite content surviving the rounds instead of trying to win them. A guy who won't throw very many punches, won't commit to his shots, and he's hardly putting up a fight.
It's more of a game of freeze tag than a fight.
And that's not that dissimilar from what we saw in the Teofimo Lopez versus Sandor Martin fight. Sandor Martin's lateral movement.
Hearing the same cookie-cutter comments about how he didn't cut off the ring. Yeah, I know. Neither did Teofimo in the Martin fight.
I've read that book already. The silver lining for Lopez was that Josh Taylor fights nothing like Sandor Martin. And for Regis Prograis, Zorrilla Matias doesn't fight anything like Zorrilla. What's boxing without bad takes and knee-jerk reactions, right?
Right.
Gross oversights and slaves to the moment. To that, Teofimo Lopez is saying the only way that he'll come back is a multi-fight deal directly with a network, not a promoter.
I don't know how that's supposed to work.
Because somebody's still got to promote the show. Somebody's still got to set it all up and decorate the undercard.
Wants a 9-figure deal.
Top Rank's annual budget on ESPN to put together fights throughout the year isn't 9 figures, but that's what Teofimo wants for himself, saying the only way I come, like I said, is for a multi-bout 9-figure deal, but it has to be, see, people misunderstand what I mean. It's not just a good fight, Lopez told Boxing Social. I'm looking at 3 to 5 years or like a 6-8 fight deal with a network. Not a promoter or anything, but just directly with a network because I am my own promotion.
Canelo, who's the face of boxing in this country, he still needs the assisted aid of a promoter for his fights.
Canelo, who has more autonomy than almost every other boxer in the sport, he still needs the assisted aid of a promoter to orchestrate the show and put it all together, decorate the undercard.
The logistics.
The only reason why is I know what the boxing industry is going to do to me if I come back, and I'm okay with that. I'll sacrifice my greatness for as long as my family is going to be well and secured after that.
Thinks people in boxing are out to get him.
Because that is what is, to me, really important. Setting the trend of generational wealth. That's the most important thing. I want my sons' sons to live off the things that their father or their great-grandfather grandfather did for them. That's why, if I go back, no one expected me to call out retirement. They all expected me to say, I'll fight Gervonta Tank Davis and all this other bullshit, but I'm not in there.
And this is the guy that you said Regis should go to Top Rank to pursue.
The guy who just announced his retirement. The guy who's saying that he won't come back until he gets a 9-figure deal directly with a platform, not a promoter. This is the guy that Regis should have spent more time chasing.
Are you a fucking idiot?
You got these mongoloids that want to be right so fucking bad, they don't think about what they're saying. Ahead of this past weekend's fight, hell, ahead of Taylor versus Lopez, I told you.
Teofimo Lopez is not going to fight Regis Prograis straight away.
Doesn't look like he's going to be fighting anyone straight away.
Nope.
But Regis Prograis should have signed a long-term deal to Top Rank in pursuit of this fight, right?
Right.
Because you're so fucking smart, you've got it all figured out.
How would that decision have aged had he entered into that Top Rank deal thinking he would get Lopez?
I'm a businessman, Lopez said. I'm very smart. I'm not a stupid kid. I'm a very intelligent kid. I use the narratives out there to my benefit and to my actual liking. It's so easy now. You become Picasso. You become the guy to paint whatever you want the world to see.
Lopez has stated that his next fight is in the courtroom, not the boxing ring, finishing up divorce proceedings with his ex-wife with whom he has a son.
If it is true that Teofimo Lopez only made an estimated $1 million for the Josh Taylor fight, which was a WBO title fight, that's actually less than Regis Prograis made boxing Jose Zepeda.
A little less, yeah.
So obviously he's going to want more money on the heels of a big win like that, though a 9-figure deal directly with a broadcaster, directly with a network, that's hardly realistic.
The liaison between the network and the fighter himself is the promoter.
But Teofimo Lopez has grown distrustful of the powers that be in the sport of boxing. He seems soured by the industry in and of itself, and his strained relationship with Top Rank, that's not exactly new, you know.
He doesn't feel valued.
He hasn't for years now. Immediately after the Vasyl-Lomachenko fight, he had high hopes of big purses, really big purses, and that's what led him to take that George Kambosos fight to a purse bid. For me and my money, it doesn't look like he learned his lesson, because dragging all of that out as long as he did is why he got beat.
He didn't like Top Rank's offer for the fight. He didn't like the way they priced it. He wanted more money.
But at that time, the audiences weren't all the way back yet. We were just recovering from the shutdown. Boxing was attempting to regain some footing as an industry, and Lopez versus Kambosos really wasn't a major fight.
You're not supposed to break the bank for a fight like that. Top Rank didn't want to, but Triller
comes in, surprises everybody, wins the purse bid. That goes on for about a year. Then they end up defaulting to Matchroom, and the circumstances were less than favorable for Teofimo by that time. It sounds like this time.
He's singing the same tune.
So will history end up repeating itself for Teofimo Lopez?